The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Monday, June 17th, 2024 will please come to order. Good evening. Those of you who are in attendance, welcome. If you would, please take a second and check your cell phone to make sure that you have placed it on silent or vibrate. And for those of you participating remotely, we welcome you as well. Members of the public participating remotely are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the public hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute. We thank all of you for your cooperation. And with that, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Business cards next week. Mrs. Hazen?
Here.
Mrs. Vogler?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Benicki?
Here.
Mr. Emmons?
Here.
Ms. Hahn? Mr. Mamalenti?
Here.
Mr. Violi?
Here.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Here. Approval of our minutes of the regular meeting of June 3rd, 2024, and the special meeting of May 30th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we have a letter from the City Plan Commission regarding their recommendations from their June 11th, 2024 meeting. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Plan Commission was held on the above referenced date, at which time the following petitions were considered. Petition number 2024-07, a request by WEN 14175 Bremen LLC requesting a planned unit development, amendment to allow a third drive-through restaurant and reduction of parking spaces for the vacant lot located south of 3625 Bremen Highway. The Commission, with a vote of 8-0, recommended approval. Petition number 2024-08, a request submitted by Robert Loudon, Revocable Trust, requesting to annex and establish zoning as R1 single-family residential for property located on the east side of Fur Road, across from the Preserve Apartments, extending to Clover Road. The Commission, with a vote of 8-0, recommended approval. This is signed by Donna Burkhart, Administrative Planner.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, so we'll move into ordinances on first reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-17, an ordinance declaring an emergency and determining the expenditure of additional funds for the year ending December 31st, 2024. This is other services and charges, county economic development income tax in the amount of $750,000.
Proposed ordinance 2024-17 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is PUD amendment to allow a third drive-through restaurant and reduction of parking spaces at vacant lot S of 3625 Bremen Highway.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-18 will be assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-19, an ordinance annexing contiguous territory to the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, and providing zoning classification therefore. This is annexing and establishing zoning as R1 single family east side of Fur Road, across from Preserve Apartments, extending to Clover Road.
Proposed ordinance 2024-19 will also be assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee. Resolutions.
Resolution R 2024-10, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka amending resolutions R 2022-10, R 2022-22, R 2023-03, R 2023-12, and R 2023-25, which adopted a plan of distribution of the proceeds of the City of Mishawaka's grant from American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
Thank you. We'll now move into the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-10. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Rebecca McGuire, City Controller. I'm here to introduce this resolution 2024-10. As you heard, we have amended this resolution, ARPA plan, many times. Tonight is our next amendment, and at the end of the agenda, you'll hear about the corresponding appropriation for the said amendment to this resolution. And Jim from Habitat and Ken Prince is here to speak and explain the amendment. So I will let them speak on it.
Thank you. Any questions for Madam Controller before we turn it over to the others? Thank you, as always, for your work on this, Becky. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of the council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development for the city. Very excited to be here with Habitat for Humanity. As you know, Habitat for Humanity of St. Joseph County has been a great partner of the city going back to 2018 with the Carter Work Build project at the Fields of Highland. That is a project that has been monumental in terms of what it's been able to accomplish. As you know, Habitat previously would normally get more infill lots and do a few at a time, and we in fact just worked with them last year to provide additional lots because they were running out and have run out of lots at the Field of Highland project. So they have additional opportunities within the city of Mishawaka to build. But why we're so excited about this component, as Mayor Wood identified in his State of the City, is there's a real need. We hear of the large economic development projects happening throughout the county. Hopefully one huge one that we're able to bring into the city of Mishawaka. And all that is going to require workforce housing. And there is a demand. And as we talked about at the comprehensive plan, the houses, the old workforce housing, 900 square foot house that you used to be able to get for $80,000 is now $160,000 or $200,000 in neighborhood. There is literally the few houses that I was able to search or under $200,000 all had code violations or yellow tags associated with them when I did the research for the comprehensive plan. So affordable housing is a critical issue for the city moving forward, and we believe that this $2 million, which would enable Habitat for Humanity to acquire land and then ultimately develop a subdivision very much like the Fields at Highland, is a perfect use of those funds that will improve the city. At the request of President Hicksonball, we forwarded a draft of the Memorandum of Understanding that was replicated for these funds, where we use the template from the Carter Work Build to forward to you, and it identifies specifically some of the parameters that we envision as part of that project. The one is that they look for the project along the McKinley corridor. This has nothing to do with Southwest Little League. In fact, in part, because we were having so many problems with Southwest Little League and we had asked Habitat to look for that property specifically to develop houses. Now that we've given Southwest Little League another chance, it's very important that we now provide them another opportunity to provide a different property rather than Southwest Little League. So it's important to note that this future property, when it eventually becomes public, is not the Southwest Little League and will be located in a completely different part of town. The other thing I'll note is since the Great Recession in 2008, our home construction essentially dropped at that point of time from being over 100 houses per year to roughly about 50 houses per year. So what Habitat for Humanity does in terms of the growth, even though it might be only 15 homes a year, is very significant relative to the overall single-family home growth of the city. So to talk about the program that Habitat does and the number of houses that they're looking to do per year, I'd like to introduce Jim Williams. Those of you who may not know him, he's probably one of the most well-known people in this community. But Jim, if you would like to come up and just explain a little bit about what you're looking to do, and again, talk about the increase in housing that you'd like to do as an organization.
Any questions for Mr. Prince before we hear from Mr. Williams? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to be here. I would like to just say thank you personally for Mayor Wood and all of you helping us create such an effective partnership, a public-private partnership between Habitat for Humanity of St. Joseph County and the city of Mishawaka. I'm proud to say that we have built 115 houses in Mishawaka, and that our families, our Mishawaka families, are paying over $170,000 per year in property taxes. So that's a statistic I like to share. I'm sure this group is well aware of the housing crisis that we have around the country. Mishawaka, like many cities around America, is struggling to provide entry-level housing. I try to stay away from the term affordable housing because sometimes people have a negative connotation. They think it's heavily subsidized government housing, and many times they assume it's poorly constructed. That is not what Habitat for Humanity is building, but the need is great. The statistic that I use is there's about 14,000 families in St. Joseph County that pay over 30% of their gross income for housing. They need a program like Habitat because they're currently renting and their rents keep going up and they feel stuck and they don't know what to do. Many of those 14,000 families live in the city of Mishawaka. Habitat is nearing completion of the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Work Project subdivision, the fields at Highland. I'm sure all of you know where that's at the corner of Burkett and Jefferson. 76 homes, and those are not all Habitat families, may I remind you. 60% approximately are Habitat families, and 40% are market rate homes that we are selling to the general public, which is creating a diverse, healthy, vibrant, mixed income community. But since we are coming to the end of that project, and we're excited about that and all the park and everything associated with that sense of community, we do need to be looking for land for our next project. We love working with the city of Mishawaka. I'm so glad that we can not just give you words about what we would like to do, but we can point to the subdivision, the fields at Highland, and show you what we're capable of doing when we work together, but we do need to identify our next property. We have located a 9-acre property and actually made an offer on it. So we have a signed purchase agreement. We are in the due diligence phase right now and waiting for the seller to provide documentation, title work, things like that. Part of that agreement is contingent upon us receiving these funds from the city of Mishawaka. If we do receive the funds, we would use them for land acquisition, demolition, relocation, minor administrative expenses, but mostly land acquisition and infrastructure. The total project cost to build, by the way, would be a minimum of 40 single-family homeowner-occupied residential homes. I emphasize that because none of them would be rentals. Habitat is about home ownership, and we actually are trying to shoot for more than 40 homes, but to make sure that we don't overpromise, we're saying 40 homes. But we know that we could do a minimum of 40, but that's a total investment of $13 million that Habitat will be making. So yes, we do need assistance with that, and the $2 million would be helpful, but we are bringing $13 million total to the table to make that happen. Recently, Habitat International did an economic analysis for all of its affiliates across the country. They took our audited financial statements, our house production numbers, and they put those into a software program called ImPlan. And it kind of gave an idea of what kind of economic impact our home building efforts have in St. Joe County and city of Mishawaka. And what they told us is for every dollar that we invest in the community, building construction or purchasing construction materials, paying subcontractors, all those things that you would assume we would spend money on, actually an additional $1.67 of impact goes into the community. So if we're investing $13 million, there's actually another $21.7 million of residual positive economic impact as a result of that activity. So I just wanted to share that with you. These 40 houses obviously will help 40 families, but the impact goes much further beyond that. A couple things to keep in mind: it could also add an additional $60,000 per year to the property tax rolls. And I like that number because it's getting us closer and closer to a total of $250,000 that Habitat families would be paying every year in property taxes. Can't tell you how many people in the community still think that our Habitat families get houses for free. They don't. They work very hard for those houses. They have a mortgage. They're part of the community, and they are paying property taxes. And I don't know exactly what the makeup of each family is going to be, but based on past work, we project that maybe 50 to 70 more children would be added to the rolls on the school city of Mishawaka schools as a result of this investment as well. So thank you for the consideration, for the chance to tell you a little bit about what Habitat's doing. But we are excited. We are one of the top producers across Habitat in the United States. And as Ken said, we are trying to increase our house production to a minimum of 15 houses a year. And that might not sound like a lot, but that would put us in the top 5% of Habitat affiliates in the country. Out of 1,000 affiliates, it would put us in the top 40. So it's expensive to build houses. So we're proud of the work that we've been able to do, but we definitely realize it's a partnership. And we thank the city of Mishawaka for your support and what you've done. So I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Williams? Mr. Mamalante.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for the great presentation, but more importantly, thank you for all that you do for the city of Mishawaka, and most importantly, for the families that take ownership. I'll just preface it by working on that week I worked on the Habitat was one of the most rewarding weeks I ever had in my life, and it didn't go unnoticed for all the efforts that you and your team do. So thank you for that. The question regarding the relocation for those properties and homeowners that on the property that we're going to take that you're going to purchase. Can you help me and walk me through a little bit of the process of relocating some of these occupants?
I'm purposely not identifying the specific property just because there is a chance it won't go through. I don't want to needlessly worry residents and what have you, but I do want to assure the council that Habitat is committed to handling this in a way that will not harm residents and do everything within our power. What I mean by that, the easiest thing for us to do would be tell the seller, you take care of it before Habitat takes ownership, okay? But Habitat is not in the business of creating hardship or making people homeless in order for us to build houses for other families. So what we have said is, no, we want to be in control of the process so we can be responsible for doing it right. For example, we have just said with our board and internally, families will have a minimum of 6 months. If this goes through and we do have to relocate and rehome some families, we want to treat them with dignity and with respect, realizing that even if their homes are in very poor condition, that we want to then help them find another housing situation that is equal or better to what they currently have. So one thing is we would give them a minimum of 6 months, and then we would get professional help, consultants to help them walk through that process, and then give them plenty of time, plenty of notice, and also give them resources and build referrals. In fact, we've already reached out to a few places to see if they would accept families that would like to move to their location. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions? Then, I'm sorry, Mrs. Volker.
Sorry, thank you very much. Sorry, this popped into my mind and then it went out of my mind and it just came back in again. The 40 homes that you're hoping to build on this property, 15 homes a year is what I'm understanding. Are these, is this going to be a 60-40 Habitat market rate community, or do you anticipate that these will be primarily Habitat?
I'm glad you asked that. That will be a 60-40 development as well. That is actually our philosophy. That's the way we would do any project going forward. We don't want to create isolated, concentrated poverty. We don't want our Habitat families to feel isolated. We want to create neighborhoods that really, by the time they're done, feel like any other neighborhood in the city of Mishawaka. And where there's mixed income, there's diversity and vibrancy and a sense of community. So 60-40 split, approximately. Sometimes for whatever reason, can't control exactly how many people are willing to buy the market rate houses. So it might be 65, 35, but as close to 60-40 as we can get it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Violi?
Thank you, Mr. President. You said the total cost would be $13 million.
Correct.
And you're going to build 40 homes out of the $13 million.
Correct.
So when I do the math, does that, I know it says $325,000 per home.
Yes.
That's not, is that going to be the mark? How does that, I'm new to this, so can you explain to me how that cost comes per home?
We did the same math that you just did, and
Okay.
it does not make any sense for us to do it without assistance. So if we didn't have these funds from the city of Mishawaka, if we couldn't apply for ready funds to match these funds, the dollars and cents, the accounting would not make sense for us to do this, okay? So I do think that the city of Mishawaka has some interest in improving the McKinley corridor, which, by the way, Habitat just purchased the old medical building at 524 McKinley. And so that is going to become our new main office. So we are helping with that improvement of the McKinley corridor. And that 2.5 acres just to the west of that building, we just closed on that last Tuesday, so we purchased that as well. So, and we purchased 3 lots behind our building, which we could build more houses if we needed to. So we're trying to do that. And just from a home building perspective, the numbers don't make sense. But when you look at the comprehensive view of helping improve a blighted area and to do something that would be very close to the Carter Work Project, the fields at Highland, we're getting the impression that that would be something that would be helpful to the city of Mishawaka, which is why we're willing to make an investment in a way that might be different than what we would normally do.
But can you just tell me what would an average price for a Habitat family versus the market value? Or is there no, I know probably no way to do that now, but some type of ballpark?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, 5 years ago, when we did the Carter Work Project, those houses appraised for $130,000. That seemed high at that time, but you know what? That was a good entry-level price. I don't want to shock you, but I'll tell you that now, 5 years later, the exact same house is appraised for $260,000, double. So whether we like to hear it or not, an entry-level home, 1,400 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, full basement, 1-stall garage in St. Joe County, Indiana, costs $250,000. That's what we're up against. Now, we have a creative way, which I can't get into right now, of how we help low and moderate income families afford that. And one of the ways we do that is with very low interest and 0% interest second mortgage, but that's beyond what we can get into right now. But that's what Habitat is facing. We're trying to help families afford what an entry-level house costs. And I am proud to say that our families now are getting into a brand new energy-efficient home for less than $1,000 a month. You can't rent a 3-bedroom apartment in St. Joe County for $1,000 a month. So,
Thank you. Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Mrs. Hazen?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lauren.
My question is, you're saying that with this $2 million, you also have ready grant funds, but that is going to cover the land acquisition and the infrastructure? You're not going to ask the city for additional funds for infrastructure and such, or?
Other than what they would normally do with HUD funding, CDBG, or home, sometimes it's down payment assistance, sometimes it's construction reimbursement. Those are just programs that we do every year, and they could help families get into those houses. But nothing else we won't make any other requests for infrastructure or acquisition or anything like that.
Other questions? And sir, just a couple follows-up. Thank you for the information and your commitment to continue to partner with us. Much appreciated. Mr. Prince referenced the memorandum of understanding that further details this expansion of the partnership. And as I read it, and I won't go through every clause, but just for the record and the benefit of the public, the minimum of 40 new homes are intended to be completed and occupied by December 31st of 2030, correct?
Correct.
And then, although your track record speaks volumes of success in Mishawaka and elsewhere, but particularly in Mishawaka, since we're talking about tax dollars here, or public dollars at a minimum, the the memorandum also has some adjustments financially should, despite everybody's best efforts and best intentions, Habitat would fall short of that target. And as I read it, that would be calculated at a rate of $50,000 per home.
Correct, if they're not built by December 31st of 2035.
Correct. So there's a long runway here.
Yes.
But again, your track record speaks of success, but it's important, I think, for the record to reflect that, again, through those unforeseen circumstances, if that target's not able to be reached, that there would be an adjustment with regard to the finances. So I appreciate Habitat's willingness to work with us on that end. And then last but not least, not so much a comment or a question as a comment, I also appreciate your focus on the McKinley Avenue corridor for a couple different reasons. Not only will it really breathe life into that area in conjunction with the new fire station that's close to being completed, but your focus on that area also reflects the fact that over the course of the past couple of years, we have heard, the city has heard, and apparently you heard from, the residents in the southwestern portion of the city where another site was being planned. And I appreciate your willingness to continue to locate your developments in Mishawaka, just in a different location. I am confident that it's going to be a win-win for everybody involved. So thank you for that portion of what you have done for Mishawaka as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, council members, Dave Wood, Mayor, here to speak in favor and encourage you to support Resolution 24-10. You heard a little bit about the economic impact that Habitat has on our community, and it's pretty impressive. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the community impact that it's had. The families that live in these homes have helped to build Mishawaka. They go to our schools, they're productive citizens, they work at our shops and manufacturing facilities. They contribute greatly to the fabric of Mishawaka. We have people who live in the fields of Highland who work here at the city. We have people who live at the fields of Highland who would have not lived in the city of Mishawaka but for that opportunity. And we have one particular student who I'm very proud of, and I like sharing this story. He lives in the home that President Carter helped to build and wouldn't be here otherwise except for that opportunity. Serves on my youth council, was president of my youth council, and he now serves on an affordable housing board for the lieutenant governor for the state of Indiana. That's pretty cool. I remember working on the first 2 homes that Habitat built in the city of Mishawaka. So the fact that Habitat for Humanity of St. Joe County is one of the biggest producers of Habitat homes anywhere in the country, and that most of them are built in Mishawaka, well, I think that says an awful lot about our community. And I'm going to do a little bragging on their executive director, who is one of the most recent recipients of the Sagamore of the Wabash, for his outstanding contributions, not just in Mishawaka and St. Joe County, but for the state of Indiana. He was recognized for that. So we're very proud of our partnership, longstanding partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Specifically to this project, we think, Councilman Hixenbaugh, to your point, that this corridor is ideal for redevelopment, and we can't think of a better partner to help us to redevelop this corridor than Habitat for Humanity. So there will be homes on scattered sites that are now some vacant, some in need of redevelopment. Habitat has moved, as you've heard, their office building, their offices to Mishawaka, and will renovate a building that is in need of renovation right next to our fire station that we're investing millions in. It's a cool project. And I think that these funds will make a huge impact in families' lives. It'll make a big impact in Mishawaka's redevelopment, and you will see a difference in this corridor once Habitat does what they're going to do. I'm sure I will be out swinging a hammer, as I'm sure many of you will, on some of the homes that they will build out there. And I do want to reiterate that this will essentially, Habitat will move from focusing on the Southwest Little League site to this corridor. While we still think that that is an ideal location for affordable housing and where the former Little League used to be, this will move their focus to the McKinley corridor and therefore away from the Southwest the former Southwest Little League. So I would encourage you to support this for the great families that are going to live there, become Mishawaka residents, and contribute greatly to our community. So we'll be there along the way to make sure that this is done right and properly. And I can't think of a better use of COVID funds. And I want to also, while I'm mentioning thank yous, I want to thank the council. We've had a great partnership with the use of COVID funds since they were awarded to Mishawaka, and we think this falls in line with what the original intent was for those, and appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing no one, are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalunti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Yes.
The resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2024-11, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, adding parcels to the city's property acquisition list associated with the previously approved Common Council Resolution 2014-07, which approved an order of the City of Mishawaka Plan Commission approving a certain declaratory resolution an amendment to the boundaries of the Northwest Area Improvement Project, consolidation of the South Side Economic Development Area, and the Northwest Improvement Project into one consolidated area improvement project, and an amendment to the Economic Development Plan for the Consolidated Area Improvement Project adopted by the City of Mishawaka Redevelopment Commission.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-11. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. As I indicated in my communication to the council, when we amended the tax increment financing district, the consolidated district, in 2014, we made a conscious decision at that time not to add parcels to the acquisition list. If you remember, when we amended the map at that time, we included many roadways that we identified as needing future improvement in the tax increment financing district, and we didn't want to arbitrarily put essentially what would be potentially 1,000 houses or properties into the acquisition that list at that time, that it would be much better to bring them to you on an individual basis. So by law, we are required to place any property that we're looking to acquire on that acquisition list for tax increment financing before we purchase the property. So in this case, we were approached by the owner of the 331 Inn that he was looking to get out of the business, and do we have any interest in purchasing the property? Given that the property is literally, if you walk out the front door, I think you could fall into the street without any problem. It's about 5 feet from the curb line. I don't know why, when the state had that as a state highway, why they ever left that structure there to begin with. So definitively, we wanted that acquisition. And I will say, we hadn't at the time that I wrote the email, but we have reached an agreement on price that would be presented to the Redevelopment Commission next week, and that price is $330,000 for that property, which is the average of the two appraisals we received. The issue that we had that I mentioned in the email was the disparity between the two appraisals. We had the appraisers sit down and they found a comp that warranted that the purchase of the property was $330,000. Again, as part of our acquisition, we don't seek to get good deals or bad deals. We pay the appraised value of the property, so that's what we're paying in this case is at $330,000. The next property is at 1612 South Union Street. It's a green home located on the east side of the street. Currently has a for sale sign in front of it. This property, when you look at the line of houses through there, sticks out 10, 15 feet in front of the other houses. So just seeing the for sale sign go up and knowing the proximity of that house relative to the potential widening, we felt it was prudent while the house was empty to make an offer on the property. That offer is the purchase price is $139,900. The property appraised for just above that. One of the appraisals, I forget both of them, but one of them came in at 140 to give you an idea. So they are getting fair market value for the property. And again, the need for it is the future widening of Union Street. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And do we have anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing no one, are there any council members who wish to speak? Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. Mr. Prince, I do have a question about the house. I just pulled it up, and I had looked at the map before that you sent, and I understand about the proximity of the house to the street, why you would have this on the list, but I'm looking at this house, and it's not a bad little house.
No.
So are we going to move it someplace?
We have no intention right now of moving it. And I think when I looked at it, the property, I think it's 100 years old. I think it is quite.
My house is
an old
100 and more than that. It just seems like it's a nice little house. I just wonder, 988 square feet, we're just talking about, workforce development or workforce properties, and it seems like it would be.
Our sole purpose is because of the future widening of the road. If there is an interested party in relocating the house, I think we would be happy to work with them. But our ultimate is to protect the taxpayer's interest. I hate to say that there's literally thousands of very nice houses in the city that match this description. So from our standpoint, it is a cost-benefit issue. If it doesn't cost the city additional funds, we're happy to work with anyone regarding the potential relocation of that home. Right now, we have not pursued it. We're just happy to get through. The seller was very motivated to sell it. It's difficult for us to get everything in line to be able usually to participate with the private sector. So we're just happy to be before you this evening to potentially buy the property.
So just to follow up on your comment then, you
Right.
would be open, if somebody approached the city, you would be open to allowing that
Sure.
piece of property or the house itself to be relocated?
Right. I mean, again, we're not looking to contribute to that, to the overall cost of the acquisition.
You don't want to
But-
pay for it, but you would be open to somebody?
So coming in and taking it for free, that, yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much.
of course.
Mrs. Hazen.
I apologize, I have another question, or I do have a question. So, and it's just more curiosity. So when you, like the 331, and are you paying for business as well, or is that strictly
It's strictly the building and the
the
property.
property?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. So-
Right, so they could theoretically open the 331 in somewhere else, but
Right.
Right.
Okay, yep, thanks, Ken.
for the record, I believe he's looking to retire, the current owner, so I don't believe that his plan is to open another business. I don't want to throw that out there and misinform people.
Yeah,
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Then we were back to any additional questions or comments from the council. Then hearing none, I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2024-12, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving an agreement extending the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium and authorizing the execution thereof.
Thank you. We will now move into the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-12. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of the council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. This is the renewal of our participation in the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium. Ever since it was created in the 1990s, this is following the creation of the National Affordable Housing Act. We've been required to be part of it as part of our receipt of home funds to the region. As Mr. Williams indicated, we have used home funds for the down payment assistance for Habitat for Humanity. It's also been used to renovate Mary Phillips as part of that project. So we have had some good projects that have utilized home funds. This is the same renewal that we've done every 3 years with one exception. HUD has requested that we remove the 3-year automatic renewal or automatic coming back to the council to renew. So if this is approved, this our participation would be continual until we would request removal. So we have the ability to request removal, but it wouldn't be a 3-year term that we'd be back for you. Something would have to come up that would necessitate or be that we would initiate to remove ourselves from the consortium. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Seeing no one, anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Then is there anyone with us present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2024-13, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving the request for the Indiana State Board of Accounts to examine the financial statements prepared in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-13. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Good evening again. Rebecca McGuire, City Controller. I have a number of statutory items tonight. This is my first one. In 2021, the State Board of Accounts stated that any city with a population over 75,000 must have their financial statements audited by the State Board of Accounts, and those cities under 75,000 population had to have their legislative body request that from the State Board of Accounts. And as we wish to have our financial statements audited, it's good for our bond holders, our ratings. This is what we do every year. We've done it for over 4 decades, actually, and this satisfies this request.
Thank you. Any questions for the controller? Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benecchi?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-08, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C1 General Commercial to C10 Filling Station Commercial for proposed Casey's Convenience Store and Gas Station at the southeast corner of Douglas and Fur Road. The petitioner is requesting that this be postponed until the July 1st meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we honor the request of the petitioner and postpone PO 2024-08 to July 1st, 2024.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-08 until our next regularly scheduled meeting of July 1st, 2024, all at the request of the petitioner. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, so the matter will be postponed until our regular meeting of July 1st, 2024.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-14, an ordinance transferring funds from the Motor Vehicle Highway Restricted Fund of the City of Mishawaka to the Local Road and Bridge Matching Grant Fund of the City of Mishawaka for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2024, and an additional ordinance appropriating additional funds for the year ending December 31st, 2024. This is in a total amount of $1,959,000.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Budget and Finance, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2024-14, report that they have examined said matter and that, in their opinion, should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. With that, we will move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-14. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Hello again, Becky McGuire, City Controller. As required by State Board of Accounts, when we were awarded our community crossing grant of $979,500, we must match that with funds from our Motor Vehicle Highway Restricted Fund. This ordinance transfers those funds into the Local Road and Bridge Matching Grant Fund. And we are also appropriating both of those amounts, $1,959,000. And once appropriated, we can use that for our street repair.
Thank you. Any questions for the controller? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benecchi?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2024-15, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka authorizing the investment of public funds pursuant to Indiana Code 5-13-9-5.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Budget and Finance, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2024-15, report that they have examined said matter and that in their opinion it should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? And hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-15. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Hello, City Controller Rebecca McGuire. Another annual requirement is to allow the investing in any bank in the state. We're allowed to do that with this ordinance as long as it's been approved by the state. A little history, approximately 20, 30 years ago, cities had to invest in every banking institution in the county or in the city. You had to have funds in every one. And so it's evolved to this point where we're allowed to invest in any state-approved banking institution.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Abstain.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
The proposed ordinance passes 7-0 with one abstention. Proposed ordinance number 2024-16, an ordinance declaring an emergency and determining the expenditure of additional funds for the year ending December 31st, 2024. This is an additional appropriation of funds, APR Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Grant in the amount of $2 million.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on ARPA Funding, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance 2024-16, report that they have examined said matter and, at their opinion, should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-16. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Lastly, my last item tonight, this is the additional appropriation that ties into our previously approved resolution for the amendment of the ARPA plan, $2 million.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the council? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And do we have anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move into privilege of the floor. And at this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor. Seeing no one in the chambers, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? And hearing no one, we will close privilege of the floor and move into unfinished business, of which there is none. New business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Mr. Emmons.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that the First District monthly meeting this Thursday, the 20th, will be a little bit different this month. It'll be a tour of the Mishawaka wastewater treatment plant. And so we're asking people to please come down there at 7 o'clock, meet down there at 7 o'clock, for a tour and informational giving by Mr. Brill. And this will be probably his last because he's retiring on Friday. So it's kind of a going away present. So also, we'll have donuts from the West End Bakery, and he is providing the water. Now, I don't know exactly where that water is coming from, but he is providing the water. So everybody is welcome to sample the water that he is providing and also sample the refreshments from West End Bakery. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emmons. I think with that wind-up, I'm going to be busy that evening, but others may well want to attend. Any other new business come before the council? Mrs. Hazen?
I don't know if any of you have been on the corner of Capitol and Lincoln Way, but they're making quite a bit of progress with the old Mishawaka Inn. Every time I drive by it, I almost get in an accident because I want to stare at it. So I really need to pull in and watch for a little bit, but please drive by and see the progress they've made. It's pretty fascinating in my mind, so very excited.
Agreed. Thank you. Any other new business? If not, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.